My wedding cost $5 million. My bouquet was woven with orchids flown in from Thailand and stems of pure silver. The man waiting for me at the altar, Kalen Thorne, was worth $20 billion. And as I walked down the aisle, surrounded by the most powerful families in the city, I only had eyes for one person. The man standing in the shadows behind my new husband, his bodyguard. This is not a story about a marriage. It's a story about a betrayal, my betrayal. And it's the most alive I've ever felt. My name is Aria Vance. The Vance name used to mean something before my father's company teetered on the brink of collapse. The Thorns had the capital. We had the legacy. My marriage to Kalen was the merger, and I was the final negotiated asset. He was handsome in a cold, sculpted way, like a statue in a museum you admire but never want to touch. Our interactions were press releases disguised as conversations. The bodyguard's name was Rylan. He was a silent fortress of a man, all quiet intensity and watchful eyes the color of a stormy sea. Where Kalen was polished marble, Rylan was weathered granite. He was assigned to me, a living, breathing ornament to signify my new value as Kalen Thorne's wife. My life became a series of gilded events. Charity galas, opera openings, corporate takeovers disguised as dinner parties. Through it all, Rylan was my shadow. He'd open car doors, stand post outside rooms, his presence a constant, silent hum. At first, his silence felt like judgment. Then I started to notice the details. How he'd subtly adjust the air conditioning in the car because he'd seen me shiver. How he always had a bottle of the specific mineral water I preferred, even at events where it wasn't served. He didn't just do his job, he saw me. The first crack appeared at the Harbor Lights Gala. Kalen was across the room, schmoozing a senator, his hand resting on the lower back of his young, brilliant COO, Lena. It was a gesture that was just a little too familiar, a little too possessive. I felt a hot flush of shame and anger. I turned to leave the balcony and nearly collided with Rylan. Our bodies were inches apart. I could smell the clean, crisp scent of his soap, see the faint scar cutting through his eyebrow. His gaze dropped to my lips for a heartbeat, so fast I thought I imagined it. But the air between us crackled, charged with 1,000 forbidden things. "He doesn't even look at me," I whispered, the champagne making me bold. "He's a fool," Rylan responded. He didn't move, he didn't break protocol, but in those 2 words he built a bridge between us. That night, the gilded cage didn't just feel like a prison, it felt like a stage. And for the first time, I had a co-conspirator. A month after the gala, Kalen left for a week-long business trip to Singapore. The mansion, always quiet, became a tomb. The silence was broken only by the soft tread of Rylan's shoes as he performed his security rounds. The professional wall between us began to erode, brick by brick. One rainy afternoon, I was in the library, trying to lose myself in a novel. Rylan stood by the window, a statue of vigilance. "You don't have to stand there all day. You can sit, you know. The chairs are surprisingly comfortable for how expensive they look." He hesitated, a war between duty and desire playing out in the tight line of his jaw. Finally, he took a seat in the armchair opposite me, not leaning back, perched on the edge as if ready to spring into action. We started to talk, not about the weather or the stock market or the vapid gossip of our social circle. We talked about real things. He told me about growing up in a small fishing town, about losing his father young, about the military. I told him about my dream of being a photographer, a dream my family had laughed away as a hobby. I showed him the secret portfolio of street photography I kept on my tablet. He didn't just look, he studied them. "This one, the old man feeding the pigeons. You caught the light in a way that makes him look like a king," Rylan spoke. No one had ever seen the world through my eyes like that. Kalen only saw the monetary value of things. Rylan saw their soul. The tension became a living thing, a third presence in the house. It was in the way our fingers brushed when I handed him a coffee, the way his gaze would linger on me a second too long. I found myself dressing for him, choosing a perfume I hoped he would like. The breaking point came the night before Kalen was due to return. A massive storm knocked out the power. The mansion was plunged into an oppressive, silent darkness, punctuated by crashes of thunder. I'd never liked the dark. A childhood memory, long suppressed, surfaced, being locked in a closet. I started to panic, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. I stumbled into the hallway, blind. "Rylan!" My voice was a terrified whisper. A beam of light cut through the darkness. He was there instantly. He didn't ask questions. He simply took my hand. His grip was strong, calloused, and impossibly grounding. "I'm here, you're safe." He led me to the living room, lit a fire in the massive hearth, and sat with me on the floor, our backs against the sofa, the firelight dancing on our faces. We talked for hours in that flickering glow. The storm raged, but for the first time I felt perfectly calm. He told me about the first time he saw me, not at the wedding, but a week before in a park taking pictures of a stray dog. He said I had a smile that could end wars. I turned to him. The air was thick with the scent of rain and burning wood. The infidelity clause of my marriage, the unspoken rules of his job, they all seemed to evaporate in the heat of that fire. "Rylan." I leaned in. He didn't pull away. His hand came up to cup my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin with a reverence that made my heart ache. And then his lips were on mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a confession. It was a rebellion. It was everything I'd ever wanted and nothing I was allowed to have. We broke a dozen rules in that single, searing kiss. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one we'd unleashed within ourselves. Kaylin returned. The mansion was no longer a gilded cage. It was a minefield. Every glance, every polite exchange between Rylan and me was a performance, a lie woven to hide our secret. The stolen moments became our addiction. A kiss in the wine cellar as he pretended to do a security check. His hand brushing mine under the table during a business dinner. A note left in the pages of my photography book. The East Garden, midnight. We were playing with fire, and the thrill was intoxicating. I felt alive, reckless, but Rylan became more cautious, more watchful. He was a man who understood risk, and he knew the price of our discovery would be catastrophic. I began to notice things about Kaylin I'd been blind to before. The cold calculation in his eyes when he looked at me. The way he spoke to his staff, with a dismissive cruelty he never showed in public. He wasn't just indifferent, he was capable of true malice. Our business deal of a marriage felt more like a deal with the devil. The first true shock came from an unexpected source. Lena, the beautiful COO. She cornered me at a corporate event, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. "It's adorable how you play the devoted wife, Arya," she sneered. "But we both know what this is. Just try not to embarrass him. And a word of advice, keep your hands off the staff. Kaylin has a particular distaste for disloyalty." My blood ran cold. Was it a general warning, or did she know? Paranoia became my constant companion. The turning point was the black and white masquerade ball. It was the social event of the season. I was wearing a stunning black gown, a feathered mask obscuring my face. Rylan was across the ballroom, a silent sentinel. I felt Kaylin's gaze on me all night, colder than usual. During a slow waltz, Kaylin pulled me close, his mouth near my ear. "I know you think you're clever, but remember, everything you have, everything you are is because of me. You are a possession, Arya, and I don't share my possessions." He spun me away, and I stumbled, right into Rylan's steadying arms. For a single, unguarded moment, Rylan's hand rested on the small of my back, his eyes blazing with a protective fury. Kaylin saw it. I know he did. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face before he turned and walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. I went to Kaylin's office thinking a glass of brandy might calm my nerves. His computer was on, the screen glowing in the dark. A single email was open. The subject line, "Project Phoenix Phase 2 initiated," and attached was a document. The first page was a life insurance policy, on me, for $75 million, and next to it a drafted pre-nup addendum that would leave me with nothing if I were unfaithful. He wasn't just going to discard me. He was setting a trap, and the bait was Rylan. I ran to my wing of the house, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to warn Rylan. I found him on his security rounds, his face grim. "He knows, Rylan, or he suspects. He has a life insurance policy on me. It's a trap." "I know," Rylan responded. I stared at him, stunned. I'm not just a bodyguard, Arya. I was hired for a specific purpose. Kaelan's business, it's not all legal. He has powerful enemies. My job was always to be the shield, but also the scapegoat. What are you talking about? If anything happens to you, who do you think they'll blame? The jealous, love-struck bodyguard. He's been setting me up from the start. The cozy assignments, the alone time with you, he was encouraging it. He wants us to be together, so he has a reason to destroy us both. The world tilted on its axis. Our forbidden romance, our rebellion, had been a script written by Kaelan all along. We weren't players, we were pawns. The air in Kaelan's study was thick enough to choke on. He'd summoned us, his wife and his bodyguard, for what he thought would be our surrender. Instead, it became his execution. I've decided to be generous. Sign this confession of your affair, Arya, and I'll only destroy him, not you. You can keep your family's pathetic company. He'll simply disappear, Kaelan said. He slid the document toward me. The terms were brutal: total disinheritance, public humiliation. Rylan spoke. Before she signs anything, you should hear this. He placed a slim, black voice recorder on Kaelan's obsidian desk and pressed play. Kaelan's voice boomed from the recorder. The $75 million from the employee pension fund. Route it through Aurora Holdings. If anyone asks, the bodyguard set up the accounts. He's the perfect patsy. No family, no connections, just a disposable stray. The color drained from Kaelan's face. The glass of whiskey in his hand trembled. That's you, Kaelan, stealing from the people who built your empire. You weren't just setting a trap for an affair. You were building a cage for me to take the fall for your theft, Rylan said. The life insurance policy on me, it was to cover the stolen $75 million, a tax-free payout to the company. You weren't just going to divorce me. You were going to have me killed to balance your books. Realization dawned on me. Kaelan was a cornered animal, his eyes darting between us, looking for an escape that wasn't there. The game is over, Rylan said. You will sign over controlling interest of Thorn Industries to Arya. You will confess to the embezzlement in a written statement. You walk away with nothing, or this recording goes to the federal authorities and you spend the rest of your life in a cell. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. With a hand shaking with pure hatred, Kaelan picked up the pen. He signed. The sound of the pen scratching against the paper was the sound of his empire crumbling. As Rylan collected the documents, a slow, vicious smile twisted Kaelan's lips. He looked at me, his eyes glinting with malicious triumph. You think you've won, Arya? You've just traded one monster for another. Ask him, my dear wife. Ask your noble protector about the last man he was sworn to guard. A shipping magnate in Monaco, drowned in his own pool. A tragic accident. The only witness, your Rylan. Who do you think inherited the man's entire private security firm and a fortune in grief payments from his widow? My breath caught in my throat. I turned to Rylan, searching his face for a denial, a reassurance. I found none, only a grim, unreadable stillness. The man who had just saved me, the man I loved, held my gaze without flinching. And in the terrifying depths of his silence, I realized I had no idea who he truly was. The battle was over, but the real war for my soul was just beginning.